Everyone, this is Oren on a slow Saturday night, and I thought that I could review the offerings on the Peacock, the TV network that was created by NBC that I, luckily enough, got some screeners for, but everything I'm reviewing is already on the site, and I believe it's screener free. So why don't I start with Intelligence, which is a British-produced show about a cybersecurity agent within the British government that imports an American actor. And that American actor is David Schwimmer from Friends. When Stephen Colbert was interviewing him, he was like, how come it's taken you so long to find a sitcom again? And I have to say, I don't necessarily think David Schwimmer is the kind of person that I would put in a sitcom if I ever was producing one. His Friends co-star Matthew Perry, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, hell yes, but David Schwimmer always struck me as a little bit of a misfit on Friends. He sometimes seems like a character actor, like Stephen Tobolowsky or Michael Naughton or William H. Macy, kind of like a sad misfit or a dramatic actor. He's very good at that. He's obviously acclaimed in plays. And this is another, but this one plays to his strengths, where on Friends it wasn't as self-conscious that David Schwimmer was kind of not as likable of a guy, and here he is not likable of a guy. So it's basically sink or swim. If you like this guy's comedy, then it'll carry the show. If you don't, it goes by on other things. The show is one that plays on the same kind of incompetent guy who gets by through mere accident, that has its origins a little bit in the Ricky Gervais kind of brand. Steve Carell did it with The Office, and he recently did it with Space Force. And both the David Schwimmer character here and Steve Carell are kind of Trumpian bureaucracy figures. I like to equate him to not necessarily Trump himself, who's purely malicious, but a guy who kind of winds up in a Trump bureaucracy or George W. Bush bureaucracy, who is like, I'm doing this because it's the American thing, and has a American exceptionalism attitude. And it's certainly, if there's one thing it makes a lot of satire about, is the commentary that like Americans are really cultural boobs when they're abroad. The show, on a in the character basis, it's unsatisfying because while the show is aware that this guy's an idiot and a little bit mean-spirited to his colleagues, it's not a morally equivalent universe where the characters get what's coming to them. Yes, the woman in charge of him kind of exerts her pull over him, but he still gets away with too much. And if you're invested in the characters, like a show like The Office, or, this isn't necessarily the same thing happening here. At the same time, the plots are full of sort of brick jokes, kind of callbacks to earlier things, and it has a Seinfeld-esque kind of, plotting, and each episode I felt satisfied in the way that it escalated comedically towards a conclusion. The score is very much like 30 Rock. It's a bit obnoxious, it's very jazzy, but very interesting. I've also seen AP Bio, which was the thing that I was looking forward to the most because I absolutely loved the first two seasons. It is a show starring Glenn Howerton of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who is also kind of a nasty person, but this time he's a bit more, he's not as psychotic. He's just, I only care about myself. And he's honest about that, which is a little bit endearing. But the show kind of bifurcates the character because, on the one hand, so he's a guy who gets a job teaching AP biology after being fired from Harvard, and he was once a brilliant professor, and he is a teacher who is determined not to teach the kids. But he sort of ends up teaching them anyway, and it's just an extreme exaggeration of the trope of the guy who didn't set out to teach his students, but they form a relationship anyway, like, I don't know, Renaissance Man or Dangerous Minds or whatever. This is definitely way more exaggerated, and it doesn't get anywhere near sentiment, and it also thrives on the cast. Season 3 was a little bit not as much of a growth. The three other teachers, played by Lyric Lewis, Jean Villapique, and Mary Sohn, are a bit more muted here. Patton Oswalt is given a little more to do. The students, I kind of wanted to see more of, like, to me, the two most exciting characters are the psychotic Grace and the very eccentric Heather, and there's so much room to develop so many people in the cast, and I don't know if they developed as much as I would have liked. But it's still very quality viewing. I also saw a Australian import called 4 Bedrooms, and I actually found this to be very exciting. It's basically it's like Party of 5 or whatever, Dawson's Creek, if the people were ranged in age from, I'm gonna guess, 30 to 65, maybe 25 to 60, I have no idea. And, they all have differing stories. There are 3 women. There's one woman who's a bit older, and there's a guy who's like the kind of John Krasinski of the situation. He has good hair, and he knows how to get on with people. He knows how to get on with women. He knows how to start the party. And I think he's romantically entwined with all 3 of them at some point or another. I'm jumping into the 2nd season, so I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of odd that he's into the older woman. I think that for the window it has into Australian culture, even though Australia isn't like the jungles of Papua New Guinea. It's really interesting. And the 2 episodes I saw kind of really harsh in on like the rigors of life as an older single person is, I think, what the sort of theme of the show is. I found it rather interesting. I've also seen Where's Waldo, which is a kids series that's kind of Carmen Sandiego light. I guess they felt that you had to have some educational value to it, so they go to different parts of the world. Just like Where's Waldo travels to different parts of the world, even though Where's Waldo travels to fantasy lands, I think that might have been a better direction for the series. Because, again, there's a show called, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego that's right now on Netflix, and it's done pretty decently. So Where's Waldo is covering old territory, it's stepping on, their rivals' toes, and it's not really doing anything new, and it's extremely flat to my adult eyes. I'm not really seeing anything new in this. The characters are all very flat and kind of silly, I guess. I guess the way to draw adult characters is to have them all have motivations and have them all have needs and wants, and to at least to have the adults in the series to be a little bit drawn out in their motivations. I'm not necessarily seeing that in Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. There's an adult who's like who's a thief. There's an adult who's Wizard Whitebeard is their mentor, and Wizard Whitebeard is very childish. So there's not as much distinction between characters in this universe, which kind of disappoints me so far. So I guess that's where I stand on these things. I'm having some fun. I might also tell you all about the CBS All Access shows, but for now, that's where I got.